The oxidation is one of the major problems in winemaking, especially with white wines. It can lead to color browning, loss of varietal aroma and flower, and development of bitterness. Phenolics, being the major substrate for oxygen, are the main responsible for browning. Oxidation can be enzymatic, that occurs in grape must after pressing, or non-enzymatic during wine aging. Today I'll speak about non-enzymatic oxidation. Yes, I saw it. The most common additives for the preservation of wines is sulfur dioxide for its antioxidant, antioxidase, and antibacterial characteristics. But on the other hand, we know it's a negative health effect. That's why the wine industry is challenged to produce wine with reduced sulfur. And in some cases, the goal is to produce wine without, completely without sulfur dioxide. Up to now, the total absence of sulfur dioxide increases the risk of reduced shelf life, especially in white wines. Alternative enological practices or molecules are now being studied for their antioxidant and anti-radical properties. Enological tannins and glutathione are among the most studied for their antioxidant capacity. Most of the studies have been carried out on model solution. In this work, we study the effect of adding reduced glutathione and or tannins at bottling as partial substitute of SO2. For this purpose, we used a Cortese white wine with a medium-low content of polyphenols. It was treated with 2 different amounts of SO2, glutathione and tannins, following a full factorial design. Furthermore, since the oxygen is an important parameter to take into account during all the winemaking, we oxygenated the wine till 4 ppm, a part of wine till 4 ppm, and the other part till 5.5 ppm of oxygen, to simulate 2 different, not optimal bottling conditions, and to see how these antioxidant products can protect wine from oxidative evolution. Then the wine were bottled, and during storage, we, as regards the wine oxygenated till 5.5 ppm, we measured the oxygen consumption rate, and also we carried out chemical controls to monitor the oxidative evolution. As regards the sample oxygenated till 4 ppm, we measured as well the oxygen consumption rate, and the chemical controls were carried out together with the sensory analysis after 15 months of bottling. The results as regards the oxygen consumption rate, the trend of the oxygen consumption rate of both the trial was described by a first-order kinetic equation, where oxygen with 0 is the concentration of dissolved oxygen at bottling, oxygen with T is the concentration of dissolved oxygen at time T, K is the constant rate of oxygen consumption. A first-order reaction is a reaction that proceeds at a rate that depends linearly on only one reactant, in this case, the oxygen. These results agree with the literature, but we have to take into account that since the oxygen consumption rate is influenced by different parameters, the kinetics of oxygen consumption rate in wines can be more complex than in model solution, and not always characterized as a first pseudo first order kinetic. When we compare the tendencies to consume oxygen of each additives, the only significant effect was observed for SO2. In the sample with higher amount of SO2, they were significantly faster oxygen consumer. As regards the glutathione, we observe just a slight faster effect in the sample treated with glutathione. As regards tannins, decrease in the oxygen consumption rate was observed in the presence of tannins. The key values were processed to see the main effect of the three additives and their interaction. As regards the SO2, the key parameters increased by 2.4 times in the sample with higher amount of SO2. Indeed, according with Danilewicz, when polyphenols are oxidized in the presence of SO2, a part of them reacts with SO2 to form sulfonic acid compounds, and the major of the remainders were reduced back to the original phenols. The regeneration of the polyphenols caused the rightward shift of the reaction with the consequent acceleration of the oxygen consumption rate. When we consider the effect of the presence or absence of glutathione, the key parameters increase by 1.2 times. Also, these results agree with the literature. When cysteine was added in a model solution, it was observed an increase in the oxygen consumption rate. As we know, the glutathione is a tripeptide whose antioxidant properties is due to the sulfhydryl moiety of the cysteine. Conversely, when we observe the results of gallotannins, as we already see before, the gallotannins cause a decrease in the oxygen consumption rate. We already observed these results in other trials carried out in our institute, and you also find these results in literature. Conversely, when tannins are added in a model solution, they always cause an increase in the oxygen consumption rate, probably because we added an easily oxidizable substrate previously absent. The rate of the oxygen consumption rate in the model solution is different with different tannins give different oxygen consumption rate. As we observed in some our trials and also confirmed by bibliography, the fastest oxygen consumer are the lagitannins, while the gallotannins are always the lowest oxygen consumer. Okay, we are trying to give an explanation to the reduced in the oxygen consumption rate caused by the gallotannins. In some studies carried out in our institute on antioxidant capacity of enological tannins determined by multiple chemical analysis, we observe, as regards gallotannins, we observe that they have low ferric reducing antioxidant power. That means low capacity to reduce ferric ion to ferrous ions, with the consequent low efficacy of gallotannins on starting the oxidative process. On the other hand, they show high ability to scavenge the DPPH free radical. That means high anti-radical capacity of gallotannins on the free radicals present in wines. These observed characteristics could be related to the lower capacity of gallotannins to consume oxygen and to the decrease in the oxygen consumption rate observed when added to wine. But anyway, the lower capacity to consume oxygen observed in gallotannins doesn't mean that they are lower antioxidant additives. When we analyzed their redox properties, they resulted rich in easily oxidizable compounds. That means a great power, antioxidant power. This result is confirmed in some trials where we added tannins in white wine stored not in barrel but in tank, and different kind of tannins were added to white wine stored in tanks. After 6 months, the gallotannins, the sample treated with gallotannins was scored well compared to the other one for the freshness characteristics and for the global pleasantness. When we study the physical-chemical parameters of bottled wines, we observe that the SO2 was confirmed as the protective effect for against browning. This result is due to the capacity of SO2 to form sulfonic acid adducts and to reconverting back the ketones to the orthodiphenols and to slow down the oxidative process caused by the polymerization between ketones and the polyphenols. Another interesting result, even if it is not significant, is the absence of effect of the presence of SO2 on the content of total polyphenols and of hydroxycinnamic acid, and the higher catechins present in the sample with higher amount of SO2. According to literature, the white wine phenolics molecules mainly involved in the browning process seems to be the flavanthiols, especially catechins, epicatechins, and dimeric procyanidins. We also observed the higher GSH content in the sample with a higher amount of SO2. An interesting result is what we observed with the accelerated browning test. That is a test which determines the tendencies to browning of a wine. We carried out this test after 1 month and after 3 months of bottle aging. We can say that after 3 months, there are no differences between the sample with higher and lower amount of SO2. After 8 months, we observe a significant difference between the two samples. What does it mean? On the one hand, we observed a protective effect of SO2 added at the highest doses after 8 months of bottling aging. And on the other hand, we can say that the absence of differences observed after 1 month, when the content of SO2 in the sample with lower content was higher than 10 milligram per liter, confirms 10 milligram per liter as the concentration threshold below which white wines are no longer protected from the oxidative evolution of color and aroma. As regards the effect of glutathione on the oxidative evolution of wines, the most interesting results is a higher content of free and total SO2 in the sample treated with glutathione. This could be due to the fact that glutathione is supposed to act in the same way as SO2, forming sulfonic acid addition and reconverting back the ketones to the original polyphenols. So in this way, it competes with the SO2 and preserves SO2 from in the wine. But the effect of GSH decreases over time, since after 8 months, GSH was only present in traces. The stability of glutathione in the wine depends on different parameters. In some studies carried out in our institute, where we added glutathione at bottling in a different white wine with different phenolic composition, we observed that the stability of glutathione is mainly related to the phenolic composition of the wine. The last one that you can observe is the wine we are speaking about today, which has the lowest content of polyphenols. In this case, the content of glutathione was almost totally preserved after 1 month of bottling. We didn't observe any protective effect of glutathione on color browning. These modest results obtained with glutathione may be due to the low dose used of glutathione. In fact, from literature, we know that the ketones react with glutathione, but twice the concentration of glutathione twice the concentration of glutathione was required to have the same effect as SO2. The used dose of 20 milligram per liter, which is the maximum dose admitted in Europe, corresponds to 65 micromoles, respectively 5 and 10 times lower than the concentration of the SO2 used. Probably a too lower molar concentration to show a lasting protective effect. As regards gallotannins, we see just obviously an increase in the polyphenolic content, a higher concentration, but not significant result, a higher concentration content in free SO2 in the sample treated with gallotannins, and a little protection against color browning, with lower value of chroma and A420 after 8 and 12 months. The results of the sample treated with 4 ppm of oxygen and stored for 15 months confirms what we have already observed with the previous trial. The sensory analysis carried out after 6 months of bottling confirms the positive role of SO2 in protecting wine from oxidation during aging, according to the results of physical-chemical analysis. The sample with higher amount of SO2 resulted less colored, with more intense notes related to the freshness and less intense notes related to the oxidation. No significant effect for glutathione and tannins was observed in sensory analysis carried out 6 months after bottling. To conclude, the results confirmed the key role of SO2 in the shelf life of bottled wines and in preserving their enological characteristics during aging. The addition of SO2 led to a significant increase in oxygen consumption rate, which in all wines followed the first-order kinetic. The low effectiveness of the other study additives in prolonging the shelf life of wine was confirmed. Neither tannins nor glutathione can be used as partial substitute to SO2 at the tested amounts and in the presence of high amount of oxygen. That means in this condition. The presence of GSH limited the oxidative losses of SO2. So, since the resistance to oxidative browning of wines during bottle storage depends on the concentration of free SO2, higher glutathione intakes, such as to ensure sufficient preservation of free SO2 content during storage, will have to be tested to evaluate the possibility of prolonging the shelf life of wines without adding too high an amount of SO2. The uptake of oxygen at bottling condition influenced the consumption rate of free and total SO2 during storage, and thus the shelf life of wines. To choose the right amount of SO2 to be added to wine at bottling, it is mandatory to take into account the losses due to the reaction with the oxygen dissolved into the wine during bottling and storage, and even the expected permanence in the bottle before the consumption. From a practical point of view, to date, the only way to extend the shelf life of wines without adding too high an amount of SO2 at bottling is to control the oxygen uptake in bottled wines by improving the bottling system and by choosing the correct closure. This research is carried out at Centro di Ricerca per Enologia. Thank you for your attention.